Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. We're going to give it a couple minutes to have everyone hop on here, and then we'll get started. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're just going to give it a couple more minutes, like I said, and we'll get started at like about 12:05. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Better Business Bureau series, webinar series sponsored by Dell Technologies. Thank you to everyone that has joined us the past 2 days for the new logic of work and cybersecurity risks for small and growing organizations. And a big congrats to Kurt Bowler on winning the Logitech webcam yesterday. We are delighted to have you all join us for Day 3 for Power Through Technology with Katy Drozd. Before I introduce Katy, I wanted to remind you of the amazing benefits Dell offers to the Better Business Bureau accredited businesses. You can check these out at dell.com/BBB and stay tuned to the end for another giveaway from Logitech. Once again, we thank you for joining us in this exciting journey of learning and growth. Let's make the most of the final day of our summer webinar series powered by the Better Business Bureau and sponsored by Dell Technologies. Now, let me pass it over to today's presenter, Katy Drozd.
Thanks, Allison, and thank you everybody for joining as well. Again, like she said, today we're going to talk about technology. We're kind of going to flip the coin a little bit and talk about back-end technology. So we're going to go over, I call it the core of any sort of data center. So your servers, your networking, your storage, your routers, your bandwidth, all of those trigger points that live within all businesses, and it looks different for everybody. So we're going to walk through what those things are, what they do, why you might need to start fresh and start net new, maybe why you might need to look into refreshes, and where those kind of lead us, and how they help us. So starting off a little bit about myself, I am a kind of an engineer for a sales team here at Dell. I've been at Dell for about 4 years, and the products that I'm going to talk about today, it's what I've done for 4 years. I've seen them start from generations back, and we've seen 3 generations of new hardware go through kind of the sales cycle and the tech cycle. So a lot of exposure to the products and kind of the lines of, or we'll call it the product lines that we're going to talk about today, how they've evolutionized, how they've changed with the ever-changing status of technology. We hear new things all the time. Now we've got AI, now we've got cloud. What is this chat GPT thing? What does this do for my business? Do I need to learn about it? That's what I'm here for on the Dell side. I work with people that make these types of solutions and figure out where we need to start and or refresh for any sort of businesses, small, medium, or large. Little bit of a rundown of the topics, as you can see on the screen, kind of the areas of focus that we're going to have today, as well as there will be time for questions at the end. So if you have one, if you want to throw it in the Q&A, we'll take a look at those later. So when we start, I kind of want to reel it back out or zoom out for a second and really look at where business is today. These little graphics on the screen just kind of reflect what work looks like right now. And the first graphic, I kind of put that in there to register it with the cloud. We hear about the cloud all the time, this private cloud, this public cloud. We hear different vendors with their cloud names. We see it on the TV. What is it? Then you've got your standard work from home setup. Maybe you're working from home, maybe you're hybrid. I know I'm hybrid myself. We see servers, we see PC desktops, monitors, peripherals, all around us. All of it helps us from a day-to-day basis to ease business. I always say that technology, it shouldn't be something that's hard. And as soon as it starts to get hard or difficult within, say, your infrastructure or the infrastructure that you're surrounded by, it might be time to look at what are some solutions that can make this easy. There's always an answer, is what I like to say. So starting off, where is IT right now? So right now, we are so technologically driven around every point of business. It's everywhere, whether it is the laptop you carry or we'll call it a workstation, or if it's a desktop you have at home, or maybe you have some sort of thin client, desktop PC, maybe you have a server in a closet or a dedicated data center room in your business. It's everywhere. A lot of times, businesses, whether it's transactional, you have point of sale systems. We have logs of, you can have logs of accounts. You can have logs of financial information. Maybe you have records you have to keep. Technology is dependent on all of it, and we are dependent on technology. So the first thing I like to do is just recognize that it's everywhere. Every piece of business has to have some sort of technology integrated. Not to say there aren't some tried and true methods out there, but it's just where the industry is. Data-driven. Data from the text you send to the pictures that you have, to the files, the CAD files, emails, data sheets, PowerPoints, it is everywhere. So data is something really important to accept that it's growing. And the more and more that businesses evolutionize, there's just going to be more data out there. How do we control it? We're going to talk about it. How do we streamline this growing pool of data when it's not going in reverse? It's only going to continue to grow. The backbone of business, as I mentioned earlier, most, and I would not even put a statistic on there because it's not backed by anything, but most businesses are completely dependent on technology. We have to have the knowledge and the acknowledgement of technology in order to stay, we'll call it, with the ebb and flow of the industry. Technology is also changing. As I mentioned just in my intro, just in 4 years that I've been doing exactly what I'm doing today, I've seen generations of servers be released, generations of PCs, generations of network technologies, 5G, cloud, like I said, AI, ML, it's everywhere. It's always changing and it's never going to stop. This graphic in the back I thought was a pretty good representation of a very futuristic view of where we are with technology. So we're going to streamline that. That can sound daunting. It can sound, oh my gosh, okay, so if I learn now, I'm going to have to relearn later. Knowledge is power. So the more that we can accept and know now and take charge, the easier it's going to be to make it consumable knowledge. So we're going to start where I like to call the core. And the core, I register it as compute. So in a business, you have personal computers. You have tons of desktops, tons of laptops, tons of thin workstations. But maybe you have a server, maybe you don't. Maybe you're wondering what a server is. So we're on that spectrum somewhere, but a server is a large-scale computer. So it is a massive, purpose-built compute box that is built to house your applications. So say maybe you are part of a business, you own a business, a server is very important to house those very mission-critical workloads. This can be from an Exchange server, or maybe a file server, a domain controller, Active Directory. A lot of these roles can live other places, like a workstation, or maybe it's cloud hosted or web hosted. But the importance of the server is that it's always running and it's built to take on these heavier workloads. It delivers these workloads and all of these very important behaviors to your end users and your clients through a network. So you've got this purpose-built system, and behind my text here on the screen is a tower server. But as we see the right side graphic, these can be massive data centers that are just filled with servers. Or depending on the size of your business, it might be just a small tower server that looks very similar to a floor desktop. They're kind of very similar in size, but they all do the same thing. Large-scale computers delivering your workloads, like I mentioned, print, email, file, Exchange, Active Directory, domain controller, backup. All of these things should be trigger words because they're in every business. The server houses that. It is always running. It never shuts off, shouldn't shut off, but it is always there to house these big workloads so that your business is more reliable, a little bit more peace of mind, that you have all of these workloads running on something that's not going to fail. Now, if you're in that little platform of maybe these are running on some sort of workstation, maybe these are cloud hosted, I don't need a server, everyone fits on a spectrum somewhere. People sit on the spectrum, whether it's, I already know everything about server, or I've heard this server word and I'm not really sure what it is. So if you're on that little teetering spot, why server? We'll get into it. So you see this guy on this graphic, he's got so many things going on. He is very busy, he's very occupied, and that's kind of how businesses seem to function on the IT side when you have just a bunch of laptops or just a bunch of desktops. You have to update each one, download Exchange to each one, or each individual machine has its own set of files. It has all of this data that is always subject to fail on this one device. Then we get into updates. Then you have to update each individual client item or desktop, however your business looks, you have to do it one at a time. So then you get a server that then shares the workloads from the server to a client-side device, like a laptop. It's going to save you a lot of time. So now you're not updating each individual piece of software on each laptop. You're just doing it on the server, and it offloads and it pushes all these things to your client devices. Not only does that make, we'll call head of IT, maybe it's you yourself as a business owner, wherever you fit, it's going to save a lot of time. It's going to be a lot easier and a lot more dependable, knowing that you are doing the exact same thing from the server level all the way to the end user level one time. So that server piece, very streamlined, very organized, very dependable. That little guy that's wearing multiple hats could be you, it could be any sort of IT liaison that's doing all this for your business, and it can be alleviated by integrating a server or a back-end compute device that's purpose-built to do all of these single-handed things. Now we're going to look under the hood for a second, because I keep saying a lot of these workloads and a lot of these things, and I've mentioned a couple of times already, well, this might be being done on a client device, or maybe you're cloud hosted. But if you're in that area, that gray space between client device and server, servers, maybe the rumor mill, they're too bulky, they're hard to work, I don't want to buy one. The importance is to realize that the parts are similar. So as you see here, we've got client side parts and then a server. So I won't even run through all of these, but if you can notice, the parts are pretty similar. So you've got motherboards, RAM, network cards, all of these little pieces and parts that make these computers. But I'm here to tell you that the biggest difference between the left and the right side, client and server, is that servers are meant to continuously run. And they continuously run in a validated state. So there's no shutting it down. There's no, oops, there's this update I have to do. Let me just take my entire business offline real quick so that I can push this update. There's built-in technologies that keep it on, that keep it running healthily, and at the same time, you can update and push anything out to all of your end user devices while it's running. So a lot of that time that leaves you subject to shutting down to do a lot of these maintenance, these day 99 operations, you don't have to worry about with server. Servers are meant to stay on. They're meant to be reliable. They might be bigger. They might be a little different than the client side, but they alleviate all of the guy with the multi-hats here because of how it's built and the parts that it's built with. These parts that we're reading, they might sound the same. They might seem that they do the same things, but they are different. We call it enterprise grade. Enterprise is that umbrella where server fits in on our product scale. So client would be your laptops and desktops. Enterprise parts are built to stay on, to deliver, to be reliable, dependable, all of those things. So they might look the same. I might say small computer and then a big computer, but that's where those differences lie, is that they are purpose-built to stay on, to be reliable, and to house these larger scale applications. So when you think server, I want us to think of that at the core of our IT, we'll call it our IT bubble. We have the core being the server, and that is what is delivering your employees the materials and the applications needed to make business happen. But kind of we're going to segue a little bit into, how do we maintain this? Because what I've said a lot is, different parts, there's lots of applications. Now I have to maintain them, and updates seem to be easier, but I don't know how. Well, management becomes, I like to call, a single pane of glass. So instead of managing each client device, like we said, Mr. Busy Man with all the hats he's wearing, you have one dashboard, just one. It shows you health of your hard drive, health of your RAM, health of your network cards. Is there any green lights, yellow lights, or red lights? Because it will give you color representation of how your server's behavior or health is actively kind of operating. So on Dell servers, we have iDRAC, Integrated Dell Remote Access Controller. All that is a big fancy short acronym for our management console. As you can see, we have to have on the graphic here, system is healthy. There's also a virtual console. Then we have system information. This is where you can partition hard drives. This is where you can assign network ports to certain port mappings through your switches. All of these fancy things can be done in one single pane of glass. Now that virtual console on the right side is a super cool feature. I don't know if I start to describe this, you'll probably get this image in your head, but the guy who stands in front of a big fancy rack of servers, then he pulls out something and opens a laptop, and he's able to log into his servers on that little laptop that slides out of his rack. Now, I hope everyone kind of gets an image of that, but then a lot of times now we're traveling, we might not be at our business in front of that rack at all times. So how do I still maintain my server? Because then this easy thing just got hard. Virtual console through iDRAC allows you to log into your server at any time, anywhere. As long as you have your IP information and you've got your username and password, you can log into that virtual console. This is something that is a little bit proprietary to this one management console, but it is something just to alleviate that burden of maybe this is difficult, maybe this sounds hard. I can take my laptop with me, and that just is easier because I can check on things from there. I don't have to worry about a server. But this is here to show it is user friendly. It has colors, pretty buttons. None of that matters, but you can maintain your server. So that core of your business bubble, you can maintain that with any device that has access to the internet. So don't let the management piece kind of get you a little worried about the server path or any sort of growth in IT. There is ways to alleviate this to make this easier. And this is just a one-to-one management. So this would maintain your server, but there's ways to maintain multitude. So you have 25 servers. We'd all love to need that, to have your businesses flourishing. We just need more and more and more. Well, we have the platforms, again, that will alleviate that to where you're managing one console and you're touching all 25 servers. So don't get stuck on that. We're here. A lot of different management panes are out there, but just know there's ways to make it simplified. Now we know how to manage it. We know what the server does. We're at the core of our bubble. Okay, Katie, this sounds pretty easy to manage, but I'm still a little lost. Now you're saying that these applications can get offloaded to my end user devices. How in the world does that happen? Well, it happens through networking. Now you might say, I already know what networking is. Now let's just refresh it. Networking can be words like routers. It can be words like Wi-Fi. It can be words like bandwidth, or we hear things on commercials that say gigillionaire and all these gigs and fiber, and it's all networking. But when you look at enterprise grade networking, this is more, how does your server communicate with the people that are connected in your local network? So we're going to kind of take a step back from the router world of the networking and look at network switches. So a network switch is something that is very critical in your business because you have to have that funnel for your information to pass through. Now, maybe you say, okay, Katie, I do have a switch, it's working great, but things are a little slow. Well, we have to acknowledge what could be slowing that traffic down. So maybe you have a 1 gig switch, super common. You have a 1 gig switch or a 10 gig switch. Now these gigs are the bandwidth. So almost think of it like the size of your highway that you're passing information on. If you're saying, oh, hey, Katie, your servers are cool, I just got a server, but it's really not giving me the performance I thought, I'd say, well, have you checked your networking lately? Because if you're on 1 gig, but yet you are peaking over 1 gig or right under 1 gig, it might be time to talk about 10 gig. Now, if you have, and wherever you live, if you're trying to pass through downtown or a huge city downtown at 5 o'clock, that's a lot of cars. But imagine if it was only a 1-lane road. It would take forever to get to point A to point B. Now put a 10-lane highway in that same situation at 5 o'clock, might still be sticky, but it's going to be flowing traffic. This is a very similar way that we talk about networking, because packets of information are being sent at all times, whether you are all cloud-based, whether you have servers in hand. We have to acknowledge where networking fits on that spectrum because it's such a critical piece. You have to give your network, your local network, your business enough room for information to pass through at ease. Now, a lot of times, networking can be one of those things. I'll go back just for a second, but networking can be one of those things that's overlooked because it doesn't seem as business critical. You say, well, my switches are fine. I really don't think it's networking, but I really urge that anytime that you're looking at a tech refresh, that you do take a look at your networking, because it's one of the quickest things that can get logged or backed up pretty much. Your networking, whether it's your bandwidth, whether it's the type of cable you're using to connect your server to your switches to your router, your server to your switches to your desktops, any way that you have this architect, networking can either be something that alleviates tons of pain points in your business, or it can be something that starts that conversation in your head. Maybe I need to take a look. So never kind of ignore networking. Give networking its own area of refresh, because it's just as important as server. It's like getting a brand new car with used tires. You're like, oh, well, this is great. This new car is going to work for a while, but in 2 months I have to go get new tires. So if you're in that position where you're in leeway, do I go ahead and start a tech refresh? I'm not sure. Let networking go with it. Just a checkup. Because you want to give your car brand new tires if you're getting a new engine. They work hand in hand, compute and networking. Every business has one. Every home has a network, most homes. And that's why, because it ties from switches on the server side, cables, Ethernet cables, fiber cables, if those things ring a bell, but it's also the routers, the bandwidth, the speed, the gigillionaire, all of these words should work hand in hand when you're looking at your whole business as a whole picture. Now, storage. A couple slides ago, I talked about data. It's growing. What used to be 10 gigs, maybe a file, now it's 200, or maybe something was 10 megs and now it's 200. That's because data is growing. Pictures are becoming clearer. We're recording videos in high def. We're creating CAD files that are in 4D, 4K, high res. Every time these new technologies come out, it's taking up more storage. So no matter if you have the fanciest, brand newest laptop in front of you that you spent $5,000 on, love to see it, you still have to look at your storage, because what you're doing on your computer, what you're saving, what you're producing, what you're creating, it takes up storage, and it's just getting bigger. The clearer the picture, the more storage. Longer the video, more storage. It's all things to stay cognizant of, but storage also relates in this enterprise bubble. We've got our server. We know how our server is connecting to our environment through networking. Now we have storage. They say, okay, Katy, you're talking about these servers. The servers do have hard drives, just like my workstation, but now you're telling me my files are going to grow in 3 years and I'm going to run out of space. What do? I don't want to buy a new server. And I'd say, okay, you don't have to, because there are ways to kind of acclimate your business with the growing trend of storage. And those are through storage arrays. Now, this picture on the right, there are a bunch of little portable devices, and you see desktops, you see servers, we see phones, but then kind of on the top right corner, we see a data center. And that's because we have purpose-built machines filled with hard drives, with new hard drive technologies, compression techniques, deduplication techniques, snapshot techniques for backup. Storage is one of those things that if your business is, those pain points, and storage is the number one, there's so many ways that you can alleviate that pain point and or plan ahead by integrating and staying cognizant of how you can prepare your storage needs. And this could be, and if we're confused on where storage lies, if you have a gaming console and you had to put an external hard drive, same thing happens in business. We're out of storage. What do? Well, that one hard drive can't take that to your data center. You're going to have to think outside the box there, but that would be where that storage array fits. Same with USBs. Take a high-res video on your phone. It says you're out of storage now, so you've got to go purchase cloud storage. These things happen everywhere. You have the hardware side, you have the cloud side, you have the external hard drive. Storage is a massive engine that the more you understand it and the more you plan ahead, I cannot stress planning ahead enough, the easier it's going to be. If you have X amount of data right now, times it by 5. Because I'm sitting here to promise you that one day it will be there, and it won't be too far because data is growing, the size of files are growing, it's all around us. So moving on, we're building on our business bubble here. We have our compute, again, networking, we have storage. Now we need to protect our business bubble because bubbles are fragile. They pop easy, you can touch it and it explodes, you can blow on it and it blows away. Our business bubble is important, so we must secure it. The reason that we talk about security, I should not even need to remind anyone, but just in case we have forgotten, we have cyber hackers. We have cyber hackers all over the world. We have sensitive information on our devices. Now, let me just put this in reality for a second. The laptop or the computer screen that you're looking at right now at this very moment has security. No matter what, it does. But then think about the fact that your entire business is on a server, all your files, all your accounting logs, all of your data sheets that you have to keep for 7 years, no matter how your business is orchestrated. We got to protect that thing now because I told you that it was better. So now I'm going to tell you how to protect it because it is fragile. You have to always have a plan to protect the data that you cannot afford to lose, whether that is on a laptop, and that's okay, whether that data is in the cloud, whether that data is on a storage array or it's on a server. How are we protecting those? So on the slide here, there's a couple of different ways that we have hackers, the malware, but I would focus on the firewall. The firewall, I like to call it bubble wrap, because when you're building out your business bubble, you have to protect it, and I call it with a layer of bubble wrap. A firewall is that entry and exit point of all requests, data packets, anything you want to think of going in and out of your network, that network that your business is inside of. It's like a filter. Think of it as like a content filter. Think of it as a booter or a bouncer or at a party, something like that. That is exactly what a firewall does. It either lets you in or it kicks you out. We have to be integrating firewalls. We have to be refreshing our firewalls because the cyber criminals out there in the world, they are very smart, smarter than probably beyond me by a million. But we have to stay up to date with these things because there are new ways. There are new ways to protect. There are new ways to avoid any sort of intrusion, or we'll call it a vulnerable piece of your business. We've got to protect that device, no matter where it is, server, cloud, personal computer in front of you, wherever your data is that your business cannot afford to lose. Make sure you have a firewall or some security provision that will treat your business like bubble wrap. I could say that a million times just so that everyone would understand it is so important. And it is a piece of that business bubble. It's the outer layer. It's how we don't pop. I want to talk about how it kind of all comes together. And I just gave a really great representation. So we're going to zoom out of our business bubble because a lot of times, we talk about the hardware piece, but I know what a lot of you guys are probably thinking of. They're like, oh, well, I'm cloud hosted. That's fine. If you're cloud hosted, that is a very relevant thing. We have Dell Cloud, you have their cloud, you have this cloud, there's clouds everywhere. But I'll tie it right back into the security piece for a second. It's something that I urge everyone to think of because we hit this place probably like 5-6 years ago where cloud was everywhere. It's on sports statistics. You see it powered by this cloud. Then you see it on, I tie it into sports a lot because it's very heavily utilized there. But whenever you're watching golf and the ball goes, you see some sort of cloud sponsored data analytics that pop up at the bottom of the screen. We all see that and it's everywhere. But like the question I just asked is, where is the data you can't afford to lose and how are you protecting it? When you put your stuff off into the cloud, on my very cell phone, I have things that are in the cloud. How is it being protected? Do you have a backup copy? What happens if that data center that your data is being housed in, what happens if it fails? What are you doing to protect yourself? Do you have a backup device at your closet at home that's just offloading cloud backups just in case? That would be great. But it's something to think about that when the cloud sounds so cool or it sounds so great, where and who is protecting your data? Where are those backups landing? What happens if there's a natural disaster and it just implodes this data center that all your information's on? It's important to stay cognizant. Backups, so important. Storage devices, so important. Redundancy, super important on all of these lines of businesses we're talking about. So all of these products. And of course, when you're in the cloud, your IT looks a little bit different, but just do me one solid and think about how you are giving yourself that extra layer of safety by protecting the data you have. No matter how small, large, medium, any business should have that extra layer of security blanket, especially in the world where technology is literally everywhere. I know that we see it. I mean, on social medias, we have AI bots on our social media. We have Chat GPT that's starting to flash across every news program and or social media search engine. All of this technology is everywhere and it's getting smarter. If anything, maybe you're someone that's like, I ignore that. It's not going to take over the world. I'm not sitting here saying it's going to take over the world. It's just important to protect what you value, which in this case would be your business. Cloud, on-prem, if you can see your server right now, maybe it's in a closet across the hall, how is it being protected? I urge everyone to think of that. So we now, hopefully I didn't scare anyone off, but I hope you're thinking about security. But we know what a server is. We know and we understand why it is the core of our business. It is purpose-built to house workloads that every business needs and to stay on and ease your management. We know how the network connects the server to the end user, the server to employees through networking tunnels. We want to stay cognizant of where our threshold is with networking. Is my network too small? Do I need to refresh it and maybe go on a higher bandwidth because, everything's been a little low. I've been seeing the loading bars for way too long today and this past month. Everyone's complaining. We know that registers with network. We understand data. We understand that data is everything. Data is the history on your web browser. Data is the CAD files that you're producing out in the field or in an office. It is the very PowerPoint we're looking at right now. It's growing. In storage, there are solutions. There are solutions enterprise level for your server. There are solutions personally on your PC where we understand storage and we understand how to acclimate to the growing storage pool. Security, we talked about that. We're going to bubble wrap our business, whether it's in the cloud, whether it is in a closet at home. I hope and I urge you to just double check what your storage precautions are and stay up to date with it. Guys, this is the meat and potatoes of what I had today. If anyone has questions, I please urge to go ahead and ask right now. I work with businesses all the time. These are the pillars of information that people are talking about all the time, every day. Servers, storage, networking, cloud, security, almost the 5 pillars of IT today for every size of business. If you have questions, this is my email. If you're just interested in starting the conversation and or have any questions about the material that I presented today, I would be happy to answer those. And I thank you all for listening.
Thank you so much, Katie, for all that amazing information. If anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A at the bottom, and I will go ahead and ask them. So it looks like we already have one in here. So from Paul, we have, what's a recommended starting point for an SMB evaluating the ROI for adding or upgrading computing hardware or infrastructure to support it?
Yeah, let's see. So starting point for an SMB for adding compute hardware. So that's interesting because it totally depends on what workload your business has. So if this was any sort of conversation, I'd say what workloads are you running? Because in order to get to a starting point for hardware, whether it be server, whether it be a storage specific server or some high security cluster in your data center, you'd have to look at what workloads you're running to make sure that you either are using your hardware in the smartest way to get that return on investment, or you're either using it in the most logical way for the growth that you're looking at in the future. So ROI on the hardware, you definitely want to look into what your goals are for the applications and workloads you're running. Do you want to be hands-on? Do you want to be personally doing everything that has to do with any software you're using? This could be, AutoCAD, this could be Revit, this could be a VDI infrastructure. How do you want your day-to-day operations to look like? If you want to be super in tune and you want to be a part of all of it, well, then you might be able to start in a lower end of the server compute lineup because you'll have to do a little bit more hands-on. You want to be hands-off because your time is better spent somewhere else doing something different. We might need to set you up with a more automated type server cluster to where you're not wasting your time doing all day 1, day 2, day 3, and so on operations of that cluster. So for SMB, I'd say when looking at the lower end, smaller business, you start with entry-level tower servers. T360s are 16th gen servers. When you're looking at that more advanced compute cluster, you'd be looking at more we call them our tier 2 servers, which would be our 760s, our 960s, just bigger boxes that can hold a lot more automated processes than those smaller ones. The ROI, in my opinion, comes from how your infrastructure, I'll say how you treat your infrastructure, it will be returned. So when you see the more advanced technologies that make businesses go smoother, you have more time for not only more business, but better business, and you can evolutionize just like your technology is. Your technology should be there to help you be better as a business or make more money if that's your goal at the end of the day. Make things easier for someone else. Your technology should aid you. It should not hinder you from doing that.
Great, thank you. Again, guys, feel free to put some more questions in the chat. We do have another one. It is saying, what is the best first step to take when figuring out what server setup is best for your business?
Yeah, first step. The first thing you already did, and that's acknowledging that it could be an option. Number 2, it will. So as I mentioned, I think am I muted?
Sorry, you're good.
Okay, no, sorry guys. Acknowledging that a server could help you is a huge step. That acknowledging there might be an easier way. Second step, what workloads are you running? So if you have a transactional business, do you have a point of sale system? Do you have a bunch of files that you need to store? Because then you have a file share. Then maybe you have an email server you want to run, Active Directory, domain controller, a lot of these very important workloads. You have to take into equation, first off, what those are, your important workloads. Then we take a look at how many people are accessing the server or how many devices are connecting to it. Do you have 10 computers connecting to your server? So the files that you have on your server are being shared with 10 users. Do you have 5? Because when you have more users, you need a little bit more oomph in your server to make sure that everyone has a pleasurable experience in their connection to the server. So we look at the workloads, we look at how many people are accessing it and what the expectation is. I want things to be fast. I want this to be secure. I don't want to have to buy a new server in 3 years. So I want to make sure this is going to prepare me for the future growth of my business. And I know, at least in my position, when I'm having that conversation of a net new business or a net new server, those are the questions that I ask. I really take time to understand where you're at now, where you're going, and what applications and workloads and responsibilities you expect out of that server every day. And then we take a look at software requirements, workload requirements. It's different for every software, it's different for every business. And we take those and then we customize them into a compute box that will do exactly what is expected for you. But you have acknowledged it. So that's the hardest part sometimes.
All right, great. Thank you. It doesn't seem like we have any more questions, but we'll give it a little bit longer. If y'all have any, please feel free to enter those, and then we'll move along to the giveaway for today. All right, and if we get any more, we can come back to it, but we'll just get over to the giveaway really quick. Today, we are doing the Logitech Zone wireless headset for one of our attendees today, and that attendee is Sarah Freeland. So thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us today. I'll be in touch via email for you to get your address and get that shipped over to you as well. So really appreciate y'all joining. Also, just wanted to say, as we conclude the Better Business Bureau webinar series, we would like to express our appreciation to our exceptional speakers who brought immense value and expertise to each session. So especially you, Katy, today. So thank you so much. Your insights and perspectives have left a lasting impact, and we are truly grateful for your contributions. We also would like to extend our sincere thanks to Logitech, the XPS team, and Dell Services for their generous support. Their partnership has been instrumental in making this webinar series a resounding success, and we are grateful for their commitment to empowering our community. To ensure that you all have all the essential details and takeaways from this webinar series, we'll be sending out a comprehensive email next week. This email will provide you with a summary of each session, including key highlights, as well as exclusive special offers from our sponsors. And last but not least, we know you're eagerly waiting for the XPS laptop giveaway announcement. The moment you all have been waiting for is right around the corner, as we will be revealing the lucky winner in next week's email. So stay tuned to find out if you're the fortunate recipient, wow, that word's hard for me today, of this incredible prize. Once again, we extend our sincere gratitude to our speakers, sponsors, and most importantly, all of you who made the Better Business Bureau webinar series a phenomenal experience. Keep an eye out on your inbox for the upcoming email where we will share all the valuable information and exciting news. Thank you all so much for joining us, and have a great rest of your all's day.